Hi, I'm Emmanuel and welcome back to another session on ISO 27001. Today, we are going to break down Annex A 5.3 Segregation of Duties. What it is, why it's important, and how you can implement it effectively in your organization. I will explain this control in simple terms so anyone can follow along, even if you are new to cybersecurity. I'll walk you through the key concepts, some real-world examples, and practical steps you can take to avoid conflict of interest. You will see exactly what actions to take to keep your processes secure and fair. If you are working towards ISO 27001 certification, this is an important control you need to get right. Security auditors will always look out for evidence that you have separated critical tasks correctly. What is segregation of duty or separation of duty? At its core, segregation of duty is about preventing conflict of interest within an organization. This simply means that you are splitting up tasks so no single person has too much power over a process. The idea is simple. You don't want the same person responsible for requesting, approving, and executing an action. If someone has too much control over a process, there is a higher risk of fraud, errors, or security breaches. For example, one person shouldn't both check in code or push it live on the server. Otherwise, they could hide some mistakes or some of the bad codes that they found. Think about financial transactions. If one can submit an expense claim, approve it, and then process the payment, that is clear conflict of interest. The same applies in IT security. Someone who develops software shouldn't be the same who approves changes to the production system. Separating these steps means another person reviews the work, reducing the mistakes or the malicious actions. How to identify conflicts of interest in your organization? The first step in applying this control is identifying where the conflict of interest might exist. A good starting point is to review your roles and responsibility. Who does what within your team? Make a simple list or a chart showing each person's duty to spot overlapping tasks. For larger companies, this is usually straightforward. This is because different people naturally handle different tasks. But in small organizations where one person may wear multiple hats, segregation of duty becomes more challenging. In a small team, you might need to get creative, like having team members review each other's work. For example, if you are in a startup and your lead developer is also responsible for testing and developing software to production, that's a potential issue. They could introduce vulnerabilities either intentionally or accidentally without proper oversight. A peer review or automated check can serve as a second set of eyes. How to address conflict of interest? Once you have identified this conflict, the next step is to be able to eliminate or mitigate them. Yes, eliminate or mitigate. Remember, we have talked about eliminating of risks and mitigating of risks. So I'm sure you understand what that means. And you can look out for that video where we talked about that when we're treating the risk treatment and risk decisions. There are a few ways you can go about this. You need to choose one or more methods that fit your team size and resources. Are you going to redistribute responsibilities? Use compensating controls? Or you want to document and accept the risk? Now let me explain this to you. Now when we say redistribute responsibility, we are saying that assign different people to different steps in the process. For example, if you're in an IT environment, have one person write the code, have another person test it, and a separate person to approve the deployment. When you are using what we call compensating controls are just alternate checks that helps to catch issues when full segregation is impossible. If your team is too small to fully separate duties, put extra measures in place. This could include peer review, automated logs, or external oversight. And that is what we call compensating controls. Now, the third one is documenting and accepting the risks. In some cases, particularly in some small businesses, strict segregation may not be practical. If that's the case, you need to document the risks in your risk register, get management approval, and ensure you have alternative controls in place to monitor the activity. Writing down the exception shows auditors you are aware of the risks and have management concerns. Auditors always want to make sure that you are aware of the risks, because when you are aware of the risks, they know that yes, then you are taking steps to be able to attend to it. Now, what are some of the common pitfalls that we need to be able to avoid? A few mistakes organizations make when they are implementing this control that you need to be able to watch out for. One, not updating the roles and responsibilities. If your team has changed, someone is now handling conflicting duties, and you need to be able to adjust accordingly. Do a regular review of your roles charts, especially after their hires and departures. Now you need to be able, the second one is failing to enforce compensating controls. If you say you are adding an extra review step, make sure it actually happens. Track the review completion, a simple checklist or a system log. Then the third thing is overlooking internal audits. One of the biggest conflicts of interest happens when internal audits are done by people that are still managing the system. This should always be done by an independent third party whenever possible. Use a different department or an external consultant to conduct these audits. Now, to wrap up, segregation of duties isn't just a compliance checkbox. It's a fundamental security principle that helps prevent fraud, mistakes, and security risks. Strong SOD protects your organization by ensuring that no single person can misuse or abuse their power. Whether you are in a large organization or a small business or a big corporation, there are ways to implement this control effectively. Use the methods that we have discussed. Tailor them to the size of your organization. If you want more information about this, you need to be able to make sure that you have the right steps and processes in place that needs to do the checks and balances that you need to make sure that your organization is implementing this correctly. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.